I don't feel tardy. Yeah, time to take you to school.
Hurd class.
Learn music,
Hurd class.
notation,
Hurd class.
sight reading,
Hurd class.
theory, not to mention history. So open your ears, lose your fears, and get ready to learn to read music. Hurd's class.
So this lesson is about Western notation, Western musical notation. It turns out that we know humans have been playing music for thousands of years. If you look at the pyramids in Egypt, you'll see hieroglyphs and friezes that show people playing music. And if you said, well, what did the music sound like? The answer is, we're not really sure. And you say, why? The answer is, they didn't write it down. In fact, until we'd gotten to the point where we learned how to write it down, we didn't really develop all that much in terms of our musical traditions and our ability to play more complex music. But into this scene comes a very important player, a Benedictine monk, Guido d'Arezzo. Guido had a choir. He was trying to figure out how to get people to remember music from year to year. And he kept saying to himself, Stulto chi fai, il tempo non salta questa mai. And he said, why are my choir boys not able to remember these things? And he says, you remember the song we learned last Easter? And they're like, no. He's like, why you no remember? So Guido came up with two systems which transformed music. One of which is the standard for music today. Guido essentially looked at music and said, well, there's two elements here. Pitch and time. Frequency and duration. So he decided to put time on the x-axis and pitch on the y-axis. It turns out music is a graph. When we read music, time is shown on the x-axis. Pitch is shown on the y-axis. When Guido first started, he had 4 lines. We played with the number of lines for a period of time until modern notation eventually evolved, and we decided that 5 lines was the best way to represent the musical world in which we live. And that's where we are now, and have been for over 500 years of serious music history. So let's delve into how music notation works. To understand this, it helps to understand the scale. Now we've gone over this pattern. Whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half. And we learned that do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. And you say, well, where does that do thing come from? Well, it turns out Guido invented it. He didn't start with do. He actually took a hymn, Ut quant laxis, in which each successive phrase started on the next note up the scale. Later on, other musicians changed it to do, but what we end up with is this system where we associate a degree of the scale with a syllable, and that helps us to analyze and remember it. So when Guido was first trying to teach his choir boys this art, he came up with a series of hand signals and a written notation system. Here are the hand signals. You can see that he was able to get them to sing different pitches by showing them different motions of his hand. But over time, we found this was not the most practical way to read, and we moved towards the written system that he had started with. Over time, it became clear that we needed a more effective way to show the movement of time. But let's talk about time. Let's talk about the x-axis. It turns out that the more space a note takes on the x-axis, the more time it occupies. So let's take a simple song. Let's take a simple song by, well, we think it's Mozart. We're not really sure. Twinkle, twinkle, little star, how I wonder what you are. Well, let's look at how it's written down. When you start investigating the easiest way to write it in standard Western notation, do, do, sol, sol, la, la, sol, fa, fa, mi, mi, re, re, do. If I were to sing that using scale degrees, it would be 1 1 5 5 6 6 5 4 4 3 3 2 2 1. The system that Guido came up with is what we teach all music majors today. So if you plan to go to music school, if you want to be a music major in college or study extensively in high school even, you're going to learn this system of do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do, ti, la, sol, fa, mi, re, do, mi, so, mi, re, fa, la, fa, mi, so, ti, so, fa, la, do, ti, la, sol, fa, mi, re, do. It helps people know where they are. Now, there are differences. In Europe, they used fixed do, where C is always do. In the United States, we use a system called movable do. So if I'm in the key of E flat, do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do, which is much easier for most modern musicians to follow than if we were to change every syllable. If I were to take a musical cliche, do, re, mi, do, fi, mi, do, re, mi has been lowered to may, do, re, mi, do. Here's fa, fa, fi, do, re, mi, do, fi. Each syllable can be altered to allow you to use these color tones. So do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti. Maybe I want to use te. Te, te, do, sol, so, te, do, 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 me, do. This system called solfege has been used for hundreds of years to help people learn how to sight sing. So let's talk about sight singing. When you look at a piece of music, the essential truth here is music looks like it sounds. So here are two examples. Take a look at them. Which one is Mary Had a Little Lamb? To figure it out, you have to think about, well, which direction do the notes go? And you start thinking, Mary had a little lamb. It goes down, it comes back up. Goes down, stays the same. Goes and then jumps up. Same note you started on. Goes down, goes up, stays the same. Goes down, goes up, goes down, goes down. Those clues allow you to start seeing how you might be able to sight read. Let's look at time in Western notation a little more deeply. Let's take a simple song. Twinkle, twinkle, little star. Okay, star was longer. You can see on the staff that here are these notes. They have a stem on them. They're solid. Those are worth one beat each. Twinkle, twinkle, little. And then we hit this next note, and it's hollow. Star. And that's worth two beats. It's a half note. In 4/4 time, it takes up half the measure. Quarter note, quarter note, quarter note, quarter note, quarter note, quarter note, half note. As we start looking at this system, you start realizing, okay, so I not only have to keep track of pitch, I have to keep track of time. So, as these classes unfold, we'll be asking you to try and sight sing some examples. So, here's an example. See if you can figure out what song it is. Happy birthday to you. Uh-oh. I owe a conglomerate some money because I just played that song. But here, let's try again. You can see that the rhythm is not straight. There's a dotted rhythm. We'll get into that later as we learn more about notation. But you can see it starts on a note. Note, 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 note. So you start on a note, 2 notes, goes up 1, comes back down. Happy birthday to... It jumps a 4th, here comes the bride. In later classes, we'll be talking about different songs that we can use to start recognizing how to sing a jump. Because when you look at jumps, knowing how far to go is a big piece of being able to sight sing. Again, look at the music. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, happy birthday. You get the idea. So, in our next episode, we're going to learn a little bit more about how to start reading for real. In this episode, we covered where the scale comes from. Did humans invent it? No. It was always there, waiting for us to discover it. We talked a little bit about how we started to use this physical system and how it influenced how our instruments work. And we started to lay out the basics of notation. In episode 2, we'll be looking at the basics of reading notation. We'll get into the nitty-gritty. You know, what the clefs are, how to use the lines and spaces, and how to more effectively read rhythm. Anyhow, thanks for being with us. Yeah, time to take you to school.
Hurd class.
Learn music,
Hurd class.
notation,
Hurd class.
sight reading,
Hurd class.
theory, not to mention history. So open your ears, lose your fears, and get ready to learn to read